and give me shelter, shelter. Yeah.
So welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the We2r Liberian Movement platform, your distinct and dynamic platform that speaks to and for the masses. We are not in the business of manufacturing players, pimps, and hustlers. Rather, we're in the business of changing and revolutionizing the thought process of our people, not only in Liberia, but even around the world. Again, it's good to have with us today special guest who is no other, the great, lustrous, incomparable Mr. Nathaniel Y. Herron, founder of NIA, as always. Our title for today's edition of the show, which is an emergency show titled Rising Tension, a Town Hall Meeting or a Town Hall in Crisis, Unpacking the Backlash against Liberia's government. What do you think about this title, Mr. Herron?
I think it's just spot on. I just think that the title, the topic is just phenomenally awesome and it's worth diving into. For me, I'm always prepared.
Thank you very much. So again, we say good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a special emergency edition of the We2r Liberian Movement. I'm your host, as usual, Ayiti Williams. Tonight, we are bringing you live coverage of a developing situation surrounding the Vice President Jeremiah Koung's visit to a town hall meeting in Philadelphia. The event, which was intended to foster dialogue on Liberia's national development, governance, peace, and security, quickly descended into chaos as protesters raised their voices with accusations against the current administration. So, Mr. Herron, I know behind the scenes, we talked about this tension escalating as members of the audience chanted anti-government slogan and accusing the Unity Party-led government of failing to deliver on its campaign promises. What's your take on this? I know we kind of talk about it. Hopefully you got some information maybe during the event or after the event, because there were eyewitnesses who described an atmosphere charged with anger, disappointment, and frustration. At one point, one protester shouted, "You are a murderer," while another demanded we need justice for the killing of our people, the sufferings of our people, and things of that nature. So I just want you to come in and give your take on the situation that occurred at the town hall meeting this past Saturday.
Well, I will begin first of all by telling you thank you. I am privileged and honored, at least, to be on this program. Your program is very, very much insightful and is meant to at least shift the minds of people. So it's a privilege and honor for me to be on this program as we dive into the situation that occurred, I think, 2 days ago in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, involving the Vice President of the Republic of Liberia, Honorable Jeremiah Koung, with other protesters, again, from the same Liberian community. It was an unforeseen circumstances that I can tell you that erupted, but at least the tenets of democracy was observed. And part of the tenets of democracy will include free speech, and under the free speech clause, people have the right to protest. So even though the protesters did what they had to do, the vice president should have done what he had to do. But growing concern have shown from all indisputable evidence that the Liberian people, be it in Liberia or outside Liberia, are very, very much unhappy with the things that are unfolding in our country. The vice president visitation in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, with his battle cry, for example, like yo. I didn't expect the vice president to have gotten so low up to that point. He should have come up with something more substantive. For example, the high increase of prices of commodities in the country, the unaffordability of basic social services. People cannot even provide food like 30 square meals per day for their family. These are issues that we expect the vice president to have discussed. But instead, the vice president engaged in a battle crowd like yo-yo. To me, it was somehow disappointing. But more importantly, the vice president tried to encourage people, investors, to go back to the country. It's not a bad idea. I strongly encourage investors to go back to the country, to invest in the country, because once you invest in the country, at least you'll be able to reduce unemployment. At least you'll be able to provide job opportunities for our people, and our people will be able to afford those basic social services. But the fundamental question we need to ask ourselves is the government incentivizing business owners, entrepreneurs to go to the country, to encourage the country, to go invest into the country? I would say no. I would say no. The government is not encouraging, because how in the hell you would expect me to go and invest in a country that is just inherently corrupt? The government has not put into place specific mechanism that will be able to curtail or curb some of these unquestionable immoral practices of corruption. The judicial system is just fundamentally flawed.
So, Mr. Nathaniel Herron, I think you're right on track, but I would like to hold you on that note, because I know I started the show and then I just asked you to come in with your perspective. But what I want us to do, I'll try to see how we can attack this in sequence. So the meeting actually was built as a way to foster dialogue about national development and governance. However, it quickly turned into a scene of confrontation. So from your perspective, that's how I want us to do it now. And you're right on the money, because you pretty much ahead of the game. Some of the things that I wanted to ask you, but I want to be the one, since I'm playing host, so I want to be the one asking you. So I'll say, what do you think caused the shift from dialogue to discord? The first thing. That's what I want to ask you.
Preparedness.
Yes.
They were just not prepared. The handlers, for example, of the vice president, they did not put things into play that would curtail those potential threats that would probably erupt into what we saw. They should have known that naturally there will be protesters.
Correct.
The Vice President Koung and his handlers should have known that not everybody that attending the program are going to sit idly and allow him to say what he wants to say and being unchecked. So what the handlers should have done was to expect protesters. What the handlers should have done was to put security measures into place that will be able to prevent whatever potential disruption that will evolve into the process. They did not do that. I know Bestman Juru very well, a very decent and honorable man with an impeccable record. He's not too happy with the way in which the country is being run. I would expect, it would not be strange to me if Bestman Juru and other people were there and demonstrated and exercised their political rights. The vice president handlers did not handle it correctly. It was very unfortunate. That again shows the kind of leadership we have in the country. Just imagine we have the vice president of the Republic of Liberia visiting the United States and meeting Liberians from the diaspora that residing in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and other parts of the United States. People came from, I would assume, other parts of the United States.
Correct.
They should have known that people would not be in sync with the vice president introspective and socially conscious thoughts of designing Liberia or shaping Liberia into the way that he wants Liberia to be shifted. Other people are going to fundamentally oppose the way in which he's running the country. I also learned that the vice president considers himself to be a parked car in the garage.
So we're going to get to that.
Sure.
As you deliberate, because you did mention, I'll say pretty much the lead of the protest in person of Mr. Besman Judu, who I see as a true patriot of Liberia. I guess we can say based on a host of conversations that I have kept with him, and based on I think what really happened. So, what would you say about, just like you said, the handlers of the event? So now when the start of the protest, because I was there, and there was a handful of police officers, law enforcement officers who. Do you think that particular protest was appropriate? Was that particular venue appropriate to protest? And if so, why would you say that?
But there's a catchphrase. In a political arena, you should expect people to diametrically and fundamentally oppose you, and you will have divergence of ideas. So it's not everybody that attends that protest you expect them to be in sync with you. So of course it was appropriate. Protest is part of the tenets of democracy. If you're protesting, you are only conforming to the tenets of democracy, which embodies free speech. You and I know free speech is part of the tenets of democracy. On a free speech, you have protesters. So the protesters did what they had to do in fulfillment of the tenets of democracy. Now, the handlers that I consider to be somehow ill-prepared, they did not do a good job. They should have known that not everybody that attending that program is going to align the political view with that of the vice president. They should have known that. So if I were part of those that were handling the vice president, I would have included the potential of protesters coming to protest. How do we curb it? Sometimes you may be able to identify potential threats. I'm not going to call Besman Judu as a potential threat or other people, because that may be perceived as he being a troublemaker, which of course I don't think he's a troublemaker. Right. But you should expect things like this to happen. So once you have your target, for example, you're like, okay, I expect Besman Judu to protest. I expect XYZ to protest. You identify all of these people that you expect to protest. You can probably assign 2 or 3 persons subliminally where they're sitting. They can sit closer to them just in case they stop the protest. At least you'll be able to curb them down. You have the security that will be able to escort them, because you don't want the vice president to be in flight of his speech and be disrupted. It doesn't send a good signal. It shows that the vice president and his handlers are not prepared for state power, despite the fact he holds the second highest position of authority in the country. He's just not prepared. If you can't handle a little crowd like that and everything got disrupted, how can you handle the entire country of Liberia with approximately 5 million people?
All right. So thank you for that contribution, because it seems like you kind of follow the incident, and you have pretty much just laid out or some of the ills that actually led to the incident that occurred. But what I want to ask you now, because this is the sake of time, I thought that we're going to come here just for 10 minutes to address this issue that occurred during the vice president's visit to Philadelphia town hall meeting, whatever it was called. So it is clear now from the incident that there's a widening divide between the Liberian government and many citizens, be it in Liberia locally and even Liberia who are abroad. So, Mr. Herron, do you think this kind of backlash is a symptom of larger systemic issues with the government, or is this more about unmet expectations from the current administration?
Well, I won't say it's systemic because, I mean, to be quite honest and fair to the Vice President and Unity Party government, they just assumed power about a year ago. And they are expected to be in power for at least potentially 6 years. But as the epigram saying goes in Liberia, it says, when the Christmas will be good,
right,
you will know from the eve.
From the eve, correct.
I don't see any kind of a public policy formulation from the Unity Party government of which they have embarked upon implementing other than political slogan, catchphrases. For example, rescue train. What do you call rescue train? What do you call rescue mission? It's not a public policy formulation document. It's a political slogan. It's a catchphrase. But again, they only gone one out of the 6 years. So probably we can give them maybe another year, maybe 6 months to a year. But it doesn't look too good that this government will be able to rescue the people of Liberia. Now, the fundamental question that you asked about the division or the divide, the gap is widening. You and I know President Backlash Unity Party government won the election with probably just around maybe a little less than 2 percentage points. So I mean, it was a very tight race, as the way the people always say in America, too close to call.
Right.
So a win is a win for me. I can even win with 1 point. I consider to be a win, even though the one unimagined. But if you also, again, I don't want to relitigate the election, but if you also look at the invalid votes and look at the votes that Joseph Boakai, President Boakai Unity Party won, it's probably less than 20,000 votes. Just the invalid vote alone, you have 25,000 invalid vote. So it was a squeaker on the part of Unity Party. So the question that you asked to say, my man, the divide is actually widening. It is widening. The government is increasingly becoming unpopular because the promises that the government made, for example, bringing the basic social services, prosecuting people who they thought must have corrupted the system, people who they thought they cheated the Liberian people. We have not seen anything like prosecution of these individuals, and even if they did, we have not seen any tangible results. It means the government continued to fail, because if I would prosecute you to the fullest extent that the law will allow me to prosecute you, it means I must have concrete evidence to present in court for your conviction.
Correct.
Like somebody like Samuel Twe, I don't know whether he was even convicted. I know he been to court a couple of times. He was tried, but I've not heard anything like the government had won cases. So all of these things serve as a catalyst to bring more divide and division in our country, to bring more chaos. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if I see how this government is increasingly becoming unpopular by the minute.
Thank you. Real quick, I have another question here for you, and I know you're not, I would say, a lawyer or a counselor at law, but maybe you'll be able to. Hopefully, we'll make sure that we'll have professionals come. But I just want to hear from you.
And I would not pretend. And I would not pretend to be a lawyer or to be.
No, that's not what we are realists. Sure. This is the we, but we also are entitled to our opinions. So the question I want to ask you, I know you've been following the human rights situation. The reason why I'm bringing this up because of some of the what were being said at the event in terms of what the protesters were saying, allegations that the vice president is a boyo and things. So you know the interpretation. So how do you interpret the protesters' chants, particularly those referring to the King George massacre? Could this be the tipping point for growing dissatisfaction with the current administration?
Oh, there are so many reasons why the people will be dissatisfied, and they are dissatisfied. Calling the vice president Boyo, I just think it was inappropriate. But again, it's a political event. Now, in Liberia, for those of you under my voice on this platform, if you don't know who I am, I would like to reintroduce myself to you. Again, I am Mr. Nathaniel Y. Herron, who is always right about 99.9% of the time. In Liberia, when they call you Buyo, is associated with death. Is associated with you having some ritualistic killing record. So calling the Vice President Buyo, I don't think it was appropriate. But again, it was a political event, and people like to score political points. But if I were there, I would not have called the Vice President Buyo.
So then, with that being said, I know maybe I'm cutting you off, but then let's pivot back to the handlers of the event. Say if you were one of those handlers for the event on Saturday, what would have been your approach in order to avoid a preclude whatever transpire? What would you could have done to prevent that from happening?
Well, in the first place, like I said, I would be able to identify potential threats. Desmond Jury is not a stranger in the Liberian community in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I consider Desmond Jury to be a very serious-minded man. He also questioned the CDC government when George Weah was in power. He did the same thing when Johnson Sirleaf was in power. I don't know much about Charles Taylor because Taylor did not come to the United States. So if I was one of the handlers of the Vice President, I would have identified, in fact, Desmond Jury would have been the top of my list to be potential protesters. One of the potential protesters. He would have been on my list. And like I said, I would have sandwiched him with two persons subliminally, with all him detecting that this guy's just watching him. I would have done that. And just in case he starts, these two individuals, left and right, will be able to engage and to say, look, my man, if you have a question, we'll be able to allow you to ask a question, but you cannot disrupt this program. They should have known, or at least have reason to know, that people would have protested. Secondly, I would have told the Vice President, look, we're going to entertain questions from the people. And it's going to be a visceral question. It would not be a scripted question. Would not have a pre-written question documented and give it to the Vice President with answers too. The Vice President will be able to answer, to say, all right, you know what? John Brown going to ask this question. John Brown going to write this question. We're going to sit in our little cubicle and find answer for the question, appropriate answer for the question, and we're going to give it to the Vice President, and we're going to recognize John Brown in the town hall. I'm going to be like, hey, John Brown. Yeah, John Brown has a question for you, Mr. Vice President. The Vice President already has the answer. And John Brown goes, hey, Mr. Vice President, what do you think Liberia needs in order to move forward? The Vice President already got the question. 2 or 3 days, he already has the answer. I want to be more authentic.
Right.
So I would not have a pre-written question. It would be a visceral question. It would be a visceral reaction. It would be a visceral answer. Because the Vice President is just a heartbeat away from the presidency. It means you must be prepared at all times to assume the presidency of that country. So you must be prepared. I would have done that. I would have handled him in that direction.
So now, with that being said, I think I was going to get to that because I was at the event, like I said earlier on, and I represented, I would say, with what I had in mind, representing the We2r Liberian Movement. I actually went there with an intention, with 10 questions that I thought I would have had maybe an opportunity to ask 2 of those questions. But like you said, I think you were a little bit ahead of the game, saying that, scripted questions were inappropriate. There were scripted questions. I may be wrong, but they were not live questions asked. They had questions from this bag that were randomly picked, and they would ask the Vice President, and he would respond. So I think that was, from my perspective, the citizens randomly could have been given an opportunity to ask questions. Would have made it a little bit more interactive, and where the Vice President would have been given an opportunity to quickly respond to those people. But I'm not going to say that the Vice President or the handlers pre-prepared or pre-scripted, or the questions were scripted. But if it was, then definitely I think it was inappropriate. But anyway, because of the sake of time, or for the benefit of time, I want us to quickly move to our next question. Mr. Herron, you're right on the money. Thank you again for coming. And if you have Tony, this is the We2r Liberian Movement platform, the platform that speaks to for the masses. We are for the masses. We want this country to be better, but we believe that the way we can do this is to begin sensitizing and desensitizing our people. But I have this question for you, and this would be, if not your last question, maybe the second to last question. So again, the question I really, really want to ask, and I hope that you will be able to give listeners responses that will kind of help them, just calm them and things of that nature. What steps can the Liberian government take now to rebuild trust? Because the people, we can see that the level of trust that have been reposed in these people from one government or one regime to the other has totally been trashed. So what steps can the Liberian government take now to rebuild trust with its citizen? One. Two, can a meaningful dialogue still happen, or has the damage already been done?
Well, let me start with the first question. Well, now I'll start with the second one. What meaningful dialogue? The government has to be very much interactive. I don't know whether, again, with all due respect, I don't know whether the president has that mental composition to withstand that spontaneous citizenship engagement, that he himself will go on the radio at least twice per week to entertain questions, issues, and concerns from the Liberian people. That way you can engage the people meaningfully.
Right.
The people can ask you questions. We have had so many all Liberian conference in different parts of the country, Banga and the rest of it, wherein you have the selected few prominent political elite class go and sit the merry-make banquet, and they come up with solutions for problems, and sometimes the solution is even worse than the problem. So meaningful dialogue, engage the community directly. Engage the community directly. Let the president have at least one press conference per month and 2 radio shows per week. Not only friendly radio station he should go to, radio station that may not be favorable to him. Let he go there and let Liberian people ask him, and let he tell the Liberian people his shortcomings and what he expects from the Liberian people. So of course we can still engage in meaningful dialogue. But I don't know, again, whether the president has that mental composition to do it because of his age. Well, obviously, the Liberian people report and places confidence in him for which he was elected. So it means they must have vetted him and he's uniquely qualified to do the job. So I will ask the president to step up to the plate to say, look, Mr. President, Mr. C. Ayiti Williams, the host of our program, he asked a question whether the damage has already been done, whether we can still have meaningful dialogue. Of course, we can have meaningful dialogue, but it starts with you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much for the benefit of brevity and sake of our subject. We try to now conclude here, Mr. Herron. We want to again thank you for your insights tonight. It is clear that Liberia is at a critical juncture, and government must take serious steps to address the grievances that have been raised. As we continue to follow this story, we'll keep you updated with the latest development. For now, I'm your host, Ayiti Williams, and you have been watching the We2r Liberian Movement platform. Stay tuned as we bring you more on this important issue. Thank you very much, Mr. Herron. I don't know if you have a patent statement. And if you do, if not, then we're going to conclude the show.
Well, my patent statement is just to remind everybody that they should tune in to We2r Liberian Movement. It's a very insightful program. Mr. C. Ayiti Williams play host. It brings lots of information. It provides lots of incitement of things that are unfolding in our country. It's a friendly platform, encourages everybody from all walks of life to participate. So if you have the time, please be part of us. If you have any questions, issues, or concerns, you can call Mr. C. Ayiti Williams. I think he will be able to provide those information, or email him or text him. He'll be able to provide the information. Do not shy away. We can come and discuss issues on this platform. These are my partner words, and I wish you a good and godly day. Again, I'm very privileged and honored to have you inviting me on this program. Thank you very much, Mr. Williams.
Again, it's definitely a pleasure to have you on the show. We look forward to hearing you on the show, hopefully Wednesday. And this is how we're going to, again, draw the curtain. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time, I am your host, Ayiti Williams. And Mr. Herron, you have a good and godly night.
The same to you, sir. Thank you. Bye-bye.
It's all we want to live. Give me food, give me clothes, give me love, and give me shelter.